get out, get a job, get out and get a job that can, potentially put my family out of that misery. And then, I graduated, I started the job. That's me on the left. On the left there, I was unfulfilled at my job. And then halfway through, I figured maybe I could also start a business. I figured I'd gathered enough experience and I could, share some of the things that I had learned. And by the way, I studied geology, but when I got the job, I was working in a marketing communication firm. And this check right here, I'm not sure why I took this picture of this check, but years down the line, it began to make sense. It was for a day like this, so I could share my story, and I'll tell you why it's important that we share. You understand and you own your story much later. And that's me. That's the company I started on the left there. It's called S2DC Nigeria, and that's a check for 100,000 naira I got from a client, written to me. This was one of the most joyous day of my life when I started this business. But again, as a small business owner, sometimes you go for several months, no income. And then maybe once in a blue moon, you have that spike in your income. And then it's before you know when that happens again, it's God knows how long that takes. So that was me back then. And I could not for the life of me understand why I was struggling. I could not just figure it out. I know I used to have a friend called Femi. Femi would always tell me, Sam, you need to work on yourself. You need to work on yourself. But the problem was, Femi didn't understand how to do that. And I didn't know anybody that knew how. So I was at that point. And I on my 36th birthday, that's me in my living room, my second daughter there. I sat in my living room on my 36th birthday, and I was asking myself, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? I felt like there was a lot more I could do. And I didn't feel like I was doing what I felt I could do. And I sat on my 36th birthday and was asking myself, what exactly is my purpose? What exactly am I on this earth to do? All of us listen to Jane just now. And you understand that when she spoke, she talked about value. She talked about investing in yourself. I got to that point. What exactly am I here to do? Now, the change for me happened between these two pictures here. This was me on the plane to Canada in 2016. But that transformation happened for me. The change happened between these two pictures. And it was when I got to the point, I started asking myself the right questions. When I arrived here, the first job I had was working in the factory. And now that was not because I didn't have a choice. That was because of who I understood myself to be. So my first job, I landed in Canada on the 7th of May, I think it was. By about 2 days later, I got a job working in the factory. So I'll work at night. In the mornings, I'll go and make presentations. I would go into a business networking event, seminar, meeting, and I'll go present. And then I started having workshops for immigrants, all because I had figured out this step. And I'm going to be sharing with you these 5 steps that I came up with in trying to understand myself in the prior years before now. So that was me back then. But today, who am I? I moved to Toronto in 2016. I became certified as a coach, a speaker, and a trainer with John Maxwell. I registered and started a business in the same year I arrived in Canada. And I started having speaking engagements, coaching clients, virtual mentorship programs. I had a Facebook group of over 200 members, professionals. All of these things I did while working full 40-hour weeks. And I'm the host of the Iconic Life podcast. And by the way, if you haven't checked out that podcast, go search Iconic Life podcast, and you can catch up on the past episodes over there. But this is who I am essentially today. Now, the question is, in my journey, I realized that people are anxious to improve their circumstances, but they're unwilling to improve on themselves. They therefore remain bound. You see, we are most concerned about everything outside of us that we want to improve. The job, we want more money. We want to be able to fend for our families. We feel like we need that extra certification. We feel like, oh, we need to get a job in Facebook, just like Jane. We want to improve every other thing around us, but not our individual persons. As we focus on the outside, inside, that's why we are stuck. That's how and why we become stuck. Today, we are talking about how do you leverage emotional intelligence for your career. The question is, what exactly is emotional intelligence? It is your ability to understand your internal behaviors and be able to manage those, and how that interplay of how you manage those relate with the people around you. So basically, people with high emotional intelligence are able to they're able to build better relationships. And we begin to understand as we study this trend that it's become the foundation for advancement in corporations today. That's what it is. Now, I realize that things don't go wrong. They start wrong. So when we get to that point in our lives where we begin to ask ourselves these kind of questions, that was not where the problem started. The problem started out wrong. And as I began to understand and to study myself, I discovered this. In my life and in that journey, some of the things I learned were that I had the assumption gap. I assumed I will automatically grow. When I left school, all I wanted was just a job. So I got just a job. And then I became unfulfilled in that job because I wanted to improve everything around me. I was bothered about my family. I wanted to help out. So I assumed, okay, the first thing you need to do is get a job and things will just work out. And then I got to a point, I told you about Femi telling me, you need to understand who you are. But I didn't know how. So I was stuck. And then the timing gap. There were times where opportunities would come out. I'll say to myself, well, I don't think now is the right time. Maybe I'm not ready yet. And then mistakes. I was afraid of making mistakes. Then the perfection gap. We want to be able to wait before we even start. An expectation. When we begin those transformative journey, we tell ourselves, oh, I thought this would be easier. Sometimes we say, how long will this even take? Who cares how long it takes? As long as you're making progress. Now, for a lot of us on this call today, we probably find ourselves stuck at one or several points of these growth gap traps. And I just wanted to bring that to full view, so we begin to see ourselves and understand this might just be where the problem is for me. So in finishing strong, the very first question you want to ask yourself is, who are you? And I'm so glad that Jane in her presentation alluded to a lot of these things. It just felt like we sat down and wrote down these scripts together, these presentations together. The first question you want to ask yourself is, who are you? And that was where I got to on my 36th birthday. Who am I? What am I here for? What drives me? What inspires me? What motivates me? What's your passion? All of these things Jane mentioned. What's your passion? It's not just about the job or the certification. Or someone said to me, says, when you have a money problem, more money is not always the solution. When you have a money problem, more money is not always the solution. So who are you? Number two, own your story. Own your story. When Jane started her presentation, she started with a story. Now, if she didn't go back to own that story or to own the stories associated with that journey, she would not have been able to find the goals that she shared with us today. So own your story. Your story will inspire you. It will fire up emotions. It will give you permission to act. It will give you pictures of who you're aspiring to be. Vision. You begin to be able to see visions for your life. Own your story. I know that sometimes we have experiences that are, so to speak, hurtful. And the first thing we want to do is to get away from those experiences. But you see, successful people have a different mindset towards failure. My mentor, John Maxwell, he says sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. So when you had situations where you had maybe probably experienced failures in your past, it's not necessarily failure if you learned something from it. So go back and own your story and find the lessons. Confront the losses. Turn your loss or struggle into gain and be full of gratitude. Now, I have a 4-step process that I use to do this. It's called the 4I. The first thing I do in such circumstances is I try to investigate. So I go back and I ask myself, what else could I have done in this situation? I investigate. Number two, I spend more time. I incubate on those. So I take the experiences in chunks And as I'm investigating, I'm spending time incubating on what the circumstances were at the time. As you do that, the more time you spend in incubating on those things, you begin to have aha moments, insights. So the first one is you investigate, you incubate, and then you have insights. Now, those insights will give you ideas. And those ideas you get, that's what you move into the fourth step, the fourth I, illustration. You begin to build out your idea. Somebody asked the question, how do you craft your career roadmap? When you spend time doing these four things, it may not get you to the exact point, but it gives you pointers. And that sets you aside. Somebody said to us, he said, of every 100 people you come in contact with, only 2%, that's 2 out of every 100, that have a specific goal, a specific plan, and a roadmap. Out of every 100 persons, we are on this call today, we're about maybe 150. So maybe about 3 people have a specific plan, a specific goal, and a roadmap. No wonder how it feels like success is elusive. But this is what you want to do. Last lesson, number 3. Number 4, Jane talked about your environment. And I'm so glad that I have that up here. It says, change yourself and change your environment. You know, somebody said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend your time with. And your life will remain the same now in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, except for 2 things: the books you read, the people you associate with. The books you read and the people you associate with. So assess your current environment. Now, if you change yourself but not your environment, growth will be slow and difficult. So by looking at these things, you can begin to see where you place yourself. If you are struggling to change yourself but not your environment, your growth would be slow and difficult. And if you're trying to change your environment but not yourself, change will be slow, but it will be less difficult. And then the last one, if you change your environment and yourself, your growth will be faster and more successful. Number 5, change who you spend your time with. It doesn't just necessarily mean, okay, I'm going to abandon all my friends. That's not what we're saying. You want to evaluate your time. How do you invest your time? Who are you spending the times with? Are these people that inspire you? Or are these people that are just going to drag you down? Are they thinking the same thought that you have? Research shows that the people with whom you habitually associate are called your reference group. And these people determine as much of 95% of your success or failure in life. Jane called it finding your tribe, right? So change who you spend time with. Now, we talked about it. I defined emotional intelligence at the onset. You know, it's how you manage your emotional strength and how that relates with how you becoming self-aware, how you manage yourself and how that relates with people outside of you. Now, there are 4 core qualities under emotional intelligence. It's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. These are the 4 fundamental qualities that helps you build your life as an individual and every other thing that surrounds it. Now, all we have done up till now, it falls on the left half of the circle. That's self-awareness and self-management. And Jane also alluded to these things. She talked about the fastest and easiest way you could do that is do a personality test. Now, it took me 15 years to point out these things that I just shared with you in under 15 minutes. But you see, you could either choose to do it that way or to do it the way I'm going to share with you now. It's called the Maxwell method of DISC. Now, we have several tools out there. We have the Myers-Briggs, we have the Enneagram, we have different versions of the DISC method, but the one I'm certified to train with is the Maxwell method of DISC. And it shows you that there are 4 different personality types. I'm not going to go into this here right now. I have a super secret bonus at the end of this presentation for those of you that would, I have a worksheet for those of you that will eventually put your worksheet together and submit them. I give you access to how you can use this tool. So it's totally up to you, but you want to stay to the end so I can share with you how you get that worksheet. Now you say, why should you care? Why is this emotional intelligence thing important? Why is it necessary? It says emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ, is responsible for 58% of professional success, regardless of the job category, regardless of your field. 58% success is attributed to emotional intelligence. Maybe you're asking me, so what is emotional intelligence really? It has soft skills, your soft skills, like interpersonal. I mean, a lot of us have been to interviews. Sometimes after you go to the first few phases, then they ask you to come and do what's called a behavioral interview. This is what they're trying to measure. Is this guy a right fit for our team? How will he deal? And they ask you questions like, can you tell us a time when you were in this situation and what you did about it? They're trying to see how self-aware you are. And then you wonder why you don't get the jobs. 9% of top performers score high on in emotional intelligence. So the likelihood that if you score lower on an EQ test, the likelihood is that you're probably not going to be a top performer. And this is something I got off of LinkedIn. It says people with high emotional intelligence earn $29,000 more annually than those with low EQ. And it says for every percent increase point in EQ that you have could translate to as much as $1,300 in your income. Jane talked about you raising your self-awareness score, maybe from 5, 6, whatever it is. But this research shows us that for every 1% increase in emotional intelligence, it could translate to your income of about $1,300 increase. So you say, what is the benefit of DISC? One, it will help you identify purpose with almost 100% precision. This will give you clarity, confidence, and consistency. Now, are those days when I was struggling? I didn't understand any of these things until I came in contact with John Maxwell, and I began to study myself. I began to understand, why am I the way I am? Now, mere listening to Jane, I can tell you who Jane is by the words that I used. And that's because I understand how this works. Now, if I were to go into an interview session with Jane, from mere spending 15 minutes with her, I know the kind of person she is. I know how I can interact with her answers. And I know the kind of questions she's asked, the kind of answers she's looking for. She talked about when she was speaking to Rose, and then it got to a point she said, I'm not a very patient person. Jane is a high D personality. That's who she is. They are go-getters. They want facts, not stories. And that's one of the benefits of DISC. You begin to see people how they are, and you're able to relate with them and manage your interaction with them from that perspective. What is leadership, basically? You're in a job role, you want to grow into, you're aspiring to leadership. Leadership is not about how well you're good on your job. Leadership is how well are you able to get the right people into the right seats that will deliver the results for your organization. That's what leadership is. And the basis and foundation of leadership is how well you know yourself and you're able to manage people. Leadership, if you're waiting for when I get into a leadership position, I will begin to try to build my leadership. You'll never get there, because the guy who is right now working on himself, understanding himself, and all of those soft skills will pass you over faster. Now, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I'm not talking about buying right now as for sales. They buy who you are. They want to get into your value, the essence of who you are. It's the why behind why you do those things. And those are the things I'm helping you. Why am I doing this today? How did I meet John? How did I come into the BNet? As the days that I was trying to immigrate to Canada, I was following the crowd. Everybody wanted to do a certification. CBAP, I did all of them. Lean Six Sigma, PMP, I did all of those trainings. But when I began to understand that, no, that's who I am. This is who I am. I'm now in my full element. I can do this for every single 24 hours a day and not feel like time flew by. That's where you want to get to. That's where you want to get to. Now, people are different. You hear that all the time, but they're addictively different when you understand these key things I've shared with you. Now, you need to be integrous when it comes to this skill, because you could manipulate people to do what you want them to do. It's very powerful. I just listen to Jane. I know who she is. To work with Jane, all device results, because I know who she is. I understood myself enough to understand people and how they relate and improve and what drives them, what motivates. Even though people are different, you can predict them, predictably different. Okay, and that brings me to the last slide here. I talked about the bonus resource that I have for you. If you go to this link, it's samshaibu.com/FS21. You'll get the worksheets for this session. If you've been taking some notes to get everything on the worksheet, go there, download the worksheets, do the exercises there, and for those that want to get them, do the exercises, reach out to me, and then I'll provide you. I have a couple of key codes. It gives you access to the DISC personality assessment. Now, a lot of them out there. There are a lot of free ones out there, but of course, when something is free, you can tell why it's free. So there are lots of free ones out there. You can absolutely go Google personality assessment, free personality assessments, and try to take some of those. But the one I can offer you is DISC. I have a couple of key codes I'll be giving out for those who are willing to do the work. So go download this worksheet, do the exercises, send them back to me. And for those that again do that, I will provide you some key codes. Not everyone, some of you, maybe fastest fingers first, if that's anything like that. And then we'll absolutely take it from there. So I guess that is the end of my presentation. Dorcas, I'll hand it over to you if we have questions. Is that Dorcas or Tosan? Sorry about that. Tosan.
No problem.
I hand it over to you if we have any other questions.
Okay, I was just going to ask you the other piece that we could reach out to you and you shared it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bukola? Okay, we do have a question about reaching out for key codes. Yeah, go ahead, Bukola.
Okay, I will just quickly take the questions. So someone is asking, sorry, how do we reach out to you for the key codes?
Okay, so again, if you go back to, let me go back to my slide here, if I can find, yeah. So go to this link. Now, I need you to, everyone here, if you're interested, go to this link, samshaibu.com/2021. It'll give you access to the worksheets. Now, people learn in different ways, and this is what we train on. People learn different ways. There are people that are auditory learners, they just want to hear it. There are people that are visual learners, they just want to see it. And then there are kinesthetic learners, they just want to interact with it. So what I'm trying to do here is incorporate the three aspects. So go there, I want you to actually do the work. Now, when you do that and you if you share your worksheets back with me, again, I want to see your commitment. Now, because these key codes range from anywhere from $149 to $249, depending on who you're working with. So I just don't want to throw it out there. It's an investment, and I want to be sure that you are willing to do the work. So if you do that and you share your worksheets back with me, then I can grant you access to the key codes. Again, I don't have so much. I'm just going to give out a few. And so again, fastest fingers first, like they say, and we can take it from there. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's how you will get access to the key codes. Do the worksheets, and then we can take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The room is closing in 6 seconds, and we'll all be in the main room. Thank you so much, Samuel, for this.
Thank you. Thank you.